Here is what you don't know, what you don't understand. People are forgetting West Virginia football, the stalwart of the Big 12 the last 15 years. They still exist. Not only do they exist, they had one of the best off seasons when it comes to the transfer portal. And they have a shot, an outside shot, but a shot to shock you and win the Big 12. Here's why. This is a Locked On Big 12, Locked On West Virginia crossover.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, and happy West Virginia Mountaineers, everybody. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Thank you for making this show your first listen every single day. And if you're not making this show your first listen every day, you're probably making Locked On West Virginia with Mountaineer Paul. That first listen to Mountaineer Paul has been gracious enough with his time to join us today. Paul, we will touch on West Virginia being a stunning team in the transfer portal this offseason based on not just what they got, but what they got rid of. There was positive attrition at West Virginia. Mm-hmm. Some people, they say, oh, well, you lost a bunch of guys. Sometimes you need to lose a bunch of guys to reset. We'll start there, and then we'll get into, for those Mountaineers, this schedule, there are pieces of it that end up favorable. If you take an in-depth look, which we will, and look, maybe you're a UCF fan listening thinking, why would I even care about it? We'll go through the schedule and mention other Big 12 teams, how they stack up against WVU. And when we finish, look, if there's anybody with the Locked On Big 12 family of shows that just knows ball across this conference, it is Mountaineer Paul. And I want to go into a Wes Miller conversation. There's no Locked On Bearcats, no Locked On Cincinnati with our network right now. So we want to take over telling you the obvious. Wes Miller should be fired. If you hit subscribe, we get to keep our jobs. And Paul, the transfer portal for West Virginia. Here's where I want to start. Because, again, there are UCF fans or Arizona fans listening who are like, why are we talking about, like, do I have to listen to West Virginia? You do. And here's why you're going to like it. Because, Paul, the players that left, at my last count, 44 guys that left, They weren't all that good. And the 34 that you brought in were a whole lot better per on three.
Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think it went like this, and look, you look at a guy like, there's a ton of guys, actually, the Neil Brown holdovers, if you will. A lot of those guys just weren't fitting in. And it's just, actually to show on this the other day, I spoke with 5 former West Virginia players that entered the portal and went to other schools. They want to reach out to players that are on the team. I'm not trying to create dissension or anything, but I wanted to reach out and just ask questions about the culture there. I got no negative feedback about Rich Rod except from one guy. For the most part, it just didn't fit what they were used to. They were under Neil Brown, totally different style, totally more laid back guy, probably a more players coach, if you will. Like Rich Rod is very intense, really hard on the players. And your reward with him is kind of after the hard work. And so if you're not putting it in, you never get that reward with him. So really difficult. And so, that positive attrition was absolutely there. There's no doubt about it. And we feel like we only lost just a handful of guys that we really feel were losses. There's truly very few.
For West Virginia, you added a couple of guys that were either 4 stars or should be 4 stars, and then rivals or 24/7. They love to, when guys commit to the Big 12, dock them points for that. You'll lose a star because you went to the Big 12. So I think West Virginia has a better talent composite than you may see from the typical rivals on 324/7. Paul, we talked about the guys who left who probably needed to go. Rich Rod said it in his press conferences coming into the season. Hey, our guys aren't tough enough. We have position groups. Running back was the one that he mentioned explicitly, that our guys are just not tough enough. I'll go find dudes who want to compete here. Did he find the right dudes this offseason to compete?
I think he did, especially for his offense, which is like really, so important to what his culture is and what we do. I think there are some pieces that have to hit for the defense to work. Offensively, you went out and got 5 offensive linemen that were starters at other places. None of them were backups. They're all really good players. You fought Auburn tooth and nail for Devin Vass, who absolutely whipped Utah in his very first start and took over at Kansas State the last 7 games of the year when Kansas State started to get better and was their best offensive lineman over the last 7 games. So you you fought Auburn and other teams tooth and nail for him, paid him $500,000 to come over, and you sunk almost $4 million into your offensive line alone. You Carson Cassidy, a 6'7" right tackle from UConn. We know Jim Mora went on to greener pastures, and that's because that, and also Samus, the offensive coordinator, also went on to greener pastures because it was an elite offense and that offensive line. He was their best offensive lineman. Wes King comes out of Wyoming, where he never allowed a sack in his career. And you brought in two guys from Jacksonville State. They were both first-team all-conference offensive linemen, along with the greatest offensive line coach in the sport, and Rick Trickett, who's put 41 guys into the NFL. He was with Rich Rod his first go-around, where, obviously we were on the verge of the national championship. He then went with Jimbo to Florida State, where they won a national championship. And then he's been at Rich Rod, where they rebuilt Jacksonville State into a Conference USA title-winning team. So he stuck behind last year, didn't come because his son, unfortunately, came to Jack State, wanted to coach with him. So Rich Rod gets him back. So that's really where it started. And then you obviously want to bring up Michael Hawkins Jr., who is going to battle with Scotty Fox Jr., who had a great freshman year. But when Michael Hawkins Jr., you get a guy, his dad's an NFL player. His brother came over with him from Oklahoma. And so, he's a guy that runs 4.3. And you can't teach 4.3. And in Rich Rod's offense, where it is very much quarterback run oriented, you need an elite running quarterback. He is that. Cam Cook comes over, obviously, a guy that had almost 1,900 scrimmage yards last year and led the nation in rushing, right? Like, I was looking at a list the other day, Drake, and there was the kid Muhammad from Washington had 700 yards and 5 touchdowns over 2 seasons, and was ranked on a top 100 portal transfers list over Cam Cook. Somebody explain that to me. How does a guy with 1,900 yards not a top transfer? It makes no sense. He had 500 yards his freshman year at TCU. He's already proven he can play in the Big 12. And then last but not least, really quick on defense, if I could pick out one or two guys, it would be number one, Toby Hostrip, 6'5", 260 pounds. He was a freshman at Oregon last year, and we know the kind of guys they get in. He's only played years of organized football, and he runs a 10,400 meter yards. He's probably one of the most impressive athletes I've ever seen in my life. And I don't know if he'll hit as a redshirt freshman or not, but West Virginia's counting on him too. They think they want him to play right away. He's going to be an NFL player someday. It's just a matter of when. And then, I would say probably the other guy that you really need to hit, there's no doubt about it, is Ezekiel Durham Campbell, who's a 6'5", 247-pound defensive end out of Coastal who can really run. So they brought in 2 really good edge players, and we feel pretty good about them. Jameer Latimer as well from Wisconsin, who had 4 picks in this defense at Jack State a couple years ago. So, if you look up and down that list, Drake, there's a ton of Power 4 guys, right? You've got a guy from LSU that comes over at wide receiver, and a lot of these guys are redshirt freshmen or sophomore types that were about to play this year at their prospective school. West Virginia just outbid them and got them, rather than going after, in some cases, the high-priced guy that's already got the production.
Yep, the mixture of both experience and players who are blue chip out of high school that are now at West Virginia who didn't pan out at their previous schools. I think that kind of mixture is going to create competition. Competition's what wins. It's not plug and play. Plug and play does not win. Competition wins. You want your second, third year guys to compete against the brand new guy who just got in 3 weeks ago. And maybe that guy wins the job. The new guy wins the job. But ultimately, you're making your team better through competition. Coming up, let's take a look at the schedule. Because, Paul, I see a lot of home games. This is Locked On Big 12, Locked On West Virginia. Hey, well, now, wait a second. Today's show is brought to you by Indeed. Indeed is exactly where I've gone because I'm looking for an intern for Locked On Big 12. Need somebody to help me run the social media of this account. The social media is fun. Social media is super fun during football season. But after football season, it gets a bit more taxing. It's harder to find the big storylines. And Indeed Sponsored Jobs has given me a list of super qualified candidates. Their skills, certifications, locations are all things that I can narrow down. I don't want just someone who can help. I want someone who can be a game changer for me. Real Stat says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Check all your boxes and get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you get your job premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way, and do it with Indeed. Today's show is also brought to you by, oh, baby, it's FanDuel. FanDuel is where I go during the NBA season. FanDuel is where I go during the college basketball season. FanDuel is where I go during the Olympics, and they're finally here. That's why following the Winter Olympic Games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports that you care about the most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected with the action, the drama of curling, speed skating, hockey games. All of that can be bet on, wagered on FanDuel. FanDuel keeps the Olympics fun. Play your game. The Winter Olympics are on. There's no better way to follow them with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game with FanDuel. It's Mountaineer Paul covering West Virginia every day on Locked On West Virginia. Look, man, I'm looking at the schedule right here. Home game, neutral site, home game. Your first road game is against a completely new look Iowa State that I think will go through something West Virginia saw in 2025, a regression with a new roster trying to rebuild with Jimmy Rogers, and then home game. You go on the road.
That's pretty nice.
Like, Paul, there's so many home games here. What are we doing, man?
Yeah, we lucked out on that. I mean, thankfully, for the first time in a while, this is an interesting schedule, right? You're going to be 2-0. Coastal Carolina's got a brand new coach. They're in the first year. They've got 80 new players or whatever it is. I've checked with some people over there. UT Martin is a pretty good FCS team, but definitely not probably, going to beat West Virginia, we would hope. So you're probably going to be 2-0 going into Virginia. A team won 11 games last year. That's the ultimate measuring stick game right away. You're going to know how good you are. And Virginia's got a lot of their players back. So if you can pull that game off, you're going to know pretty quickly how good you are. And then you go to Oklahoma State the week right after to start Big 12 play, which will be a super exciting game. It may even be the game of the week that week because of Drew Messemaker and how exciting that offense is going to be. I would say it could be on the radar for that anyway. A couple notes I made about this. I did a show a couple weeks ago on it, and I've still got my notes. You mentioned the 7 home games. That's a big deal. That's only the 5th time since joining the Big 12 they even had this many. So that's a big deal for West Virginia. It's a big deal for the fan base. And you look at who the home games are, right? That's another part of it that matters that I think, okay, look at it like this. Obviously, you've got Coastal at home, UT Martin at home. You go to Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte for a neutral site game versus Virginia. Charlotte is literally the number one donor base for West Virginia in the nation. We went and played North Carolina in Charlotte and was 80-20 in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Go look it up. We had 60,000 people there. They had 15. Yeah. So we really travel well to Charlotte. Oklahoma State is at home. We're going, and then our first road game is Iowa State, who you said is terrible. They're going to be terrible. Our first real test will be Arizona, right? In my opinion, outside of that's obviously Oklahoma State's got a chance to be good, but I don't think defensively they have many answers. Like they went full glass cannon. So if we there's a good chance we could be pretty good. Then, and our real first test may not come depending on how good some of these other teams are. I do think Arizona will be good. But, what's Cincinnati going to be? They regressed at every single position. They've got French coming in at quarterback who I don't even really think's that good. I watched this film. So, TCU, obviously, do you trust Sonny Dykes? I don't. Mm-hmm. So, you get to Texas Tech before I really feel like outside of Arizona, you're really getting tested. And obviously, was West Virginia picked in the top half of the league? No, not by most pundits. Do I believe they will finish in the top half of the league? Absolutely, I do. I really do. So it's an interesting schedule, because there's another thing that makes it tough, obviously, is the 8 straight before the bye. That's the big part, right? Like, what are you going to do about that? 8 straight games without a bye is really tough. You trade it for 7 home games most years. After last year where we had our first, second, third, fourth, and fifth string quarterback go out 1 through 5 and the running back spot went out, that's kind of rough. But you also have no back-to-back road trips on here, right? Mm-hmm. So that's something. And I think your toughest stretches is really, when you look at it, it's Texas Tech, it's Houston, it's probably Utah, right? Those are going to be your tough stretches with Arizona mixed in between with maybe Oklahoma State. So it's a very manageable schedule, I think, in a lot of ways. You've got to hope that if West Virginia ends up being pretty good this year, you've got to hope that you pound some of these teams totally just out, because that way you can rest your starters, in some of these games for the 8th straight.
Yeah. Paul, it is, I think if I may interject myself, Coastal Carolina, home game, win. UT Martin, win. I think Virginia will take a step back this year, whereas West Virginia is better. That's a win. Oklahoma State, you mentioned, I think they're better, a lot better this year. It's a home game. If it's a coin flip, you could chalk it up to a win or a loss. You're still only a one-loss team. I think you win against Iowa State. You could be undefeated going into mid-October, playing that game against Arizona. Oh, and it's at home. And then Cincinnati is a win for West Virginia. TCU, like you mentioned, again, kind of a coin flip game. Texas Tech, I don't think you pull that off on the road, but you probably beat Kansas at home. Houston is a home game. Tough game, but a home game. Utah on the road, first-year head coach. There are enough question marks, enough coin flips. Paul, there's a non-zero chance we see West Virginia. This is crazy, but that we see West Virginia. Remember when BYU went 5-7, then immediately won, double-digit games the next year in the Big 12, where we see West Virginia flip it around and win 10 games.
There's a chance, yeah, and I'm not just being the ultimate homer by saying that. You look at West Virginia's high school class they brought in. Really get lucked out with Penn State and what happened there. You got several really big time flips on signing day, 3 4-star flips on signing day that really matter. They're all going to play. One of those is a true freshman that's going to start on the offensive line, most likely, unless one of these guys in the portal beats him out, which most people don't think will happen. He's like a Jordan Seaton type character that most people project as a starter right away coming out of high school. So, I do think that here's where I think West Virginia is going to make its hay this year. You've got a running back that's already played in this offense that's coming in that ran for 1,900 yards last year. You've got an offensive line with an offensive line coach that's never failed. Like Rick Trickett, if you look at his history, has never failed to produce an elite running team. So outside of injury, I don't see how offensively West Virginia isn't a team that can win a lot of games next year. And then you paid Zach Alley $2 million to come over from Oklahoma. So you feel like in year 2, because what a lot of people don't remember about last year is West Virginia, it'd be like handing somebody the keys to a team right now and saying build a team. West Virginia didn't get the first portal window was over when Rich Rod got hired. The high school recruiting window was over when Rich Rod got hired. There was no high school recruiting. There was no portal. It was second portal window, build a team out of the second portal window. So I think, that's why I give him, and some people hate it, the year 0 moniker a little bit, because I think that with the injuries that we suffered at quarterback, all 5, you get down to your 5th string quarterback and your 5th string running back in a season. Yeah. It's insane when you have 81 new players, and you still won 4 games. You still beat Pitt. You still beat Houston, put 250 yards on them. And then you look on the schedule, and that same Houston team is on that schedule this year, and you dusted them last year. And you look at Utah, and they just everything blew up in their face that could blow up in their face. Whittingham's gone to Michigan. They took all their best players. And am I scared of Morgan Scalley like I am Whittingham? No. So there are a lot of breaks on this schedule. The only thing that you can look at the schedule and say that scares me is the 8th straight and Texas Tech.
Yeah, no doubt, and it should. That's the piece that, if you can almost guarantee a loss, Texas Tech's the one where you say, there's a pretty good chance that's what happens. Now, Arizona State was not elite last year. They got the best of Texas Tech. It's not impossible, but it looks like for West Virginia, as you mentioned, that's the one point of contention is the amount of games you play in a row. Coming up, Wes Miller at Cincinnati. Time to go, right? Let's get Paul's take. This is Locked On Big 12, Locked On West Virginia.
I'm Clea Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. Number 1 ranked UConn dominated Tennessee 96-66, turning a halftime tie into a historic win and avenging last season's loss by delivering the largest margin in the rivalry's history. AZ Fudd had 27 points and Sarah Strong added 26 as the Huskies remain perfect on the season, reminding everyone why they are the reigning national champions. In the Big Ten, number 2 UCLA rolled past number 8 Iowa 88-65, powered by 22 points from Angela Dukelich and a huge advantage in the paint, staking their claim as a national threat. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
Mountaineer Paul of Locked On West Virginia on the show. I mentioned it at the top. We don't have a Locked On Bearcats. So, Paul, I'm going to, pull you in, bring you out of the bullpen. Sorry, Arm Barn. PETA doesn't like bullpen. Arm Barn to take the reins here because you follow the Big 12 and Big 12 basketball so closely. Dog, right. From press conference, just complete buffoonery to losing games over and over, it has got to be time to fire Wes Miller, right?
Yeah, I posted the other day when he was crashing out after the West Virginia loss. I think West Virginia broke Wes Miller. It's funny. Like there was something a couple of weeks ago where we played somebody and West Virginia broke. Who was it? I was a coach. It might have been Jeff Capel or somebody, but West Virginia broke Jeff Capel. Now they've broken Wes Miller, it seems. But obviously he had all the fanfare that you could want coming over. And for whatever reason, just hasn't put it together. He had 2 good years from 23 and 20, or 22, 23 and 23, 24, where they won 23 games. They won 22 games. But at Cincinnati, you're technically, Bob Huggins built a basketball school there and an elite basketball school at that. And you're supposed to be a top 5 basketball in this conference. You should be in that top 5 conversation almost every year at Cincinnati. For whatever reason, that's not happening. And you look at his records, man. You've got an 18 and a 19 win season sandwiched in between a 22 and a 23 win season, and you're 11 and 11 this year. It's time to pull the plug. It's not working. And you look at like some of the wins. They did beat Iowa State earlier this year, and so you thought a couple of weeks ago maybe they're going to turn it around. Maybe they are, because that was a few weeks ago, and then nope, they just go ahead and get stomped by Baylor. They get stomped by us, but they get beat by us. The game they were up 14 in the second half, and Honor Huff, thank God, takes over games like he does. Yeah, luckily, and we get that win. But he's a guy that, like you said, he doesn't win the press conference. He doesn't strike fear at anybody's heart at all. And his claim to fame is this: he dominates quad 4 teams. Like he gets the expected wins almost every time. They're 42-2. If you look at quad 2 and 3s, he's consistent against middle of the pack NET teams, but he doesn't have a major winning record either. And then his only genuine significant win just happened against Iowa State in his career at Cincinnati. So his quad 1 wins are extremely rare. He's only got 9 over his tenure. That's not enough. You can't have 9 in 5 years quad 1 wins. That's should be 1, maybe 2 years worth of quad 1 wins. You know what I mean? West Virginia had 7 last year, missed the tournament. Yeah. And you've got 9 in your career. That's insanity.
Paul, man, I said to you off the air that it's hard to say West Virginia and Cincinnati are sister schools, right? I don't think that's the right way to put it. But there are parallels, similarities between the two fan bases who feel overlooked over time, right? Who feel like, yeah, man, we're just kind of this, and maybe part of that's this American Conference or Big East vibe of we were just there for a long time, fighting against the machine, trying to win and make ourselves relevant. Cincinnati feels that. West Virginia feels that. Ren Baker, oh my gosh, I cannot say enough good stuff about Ren Baker. Ren Baker has made sure the people of West Virginia are represented by tough, hard-nosed athletics that have at least, even when they lose, potential, that have at least potential. Paul, I just don't think Cincinnati is representing their fan base the way they should. And even that despite how well they started the year, that goes to Scott Satterfield too, losing a bowl game to a service academy. Like, Paul, Cincinnati fans are going through the ringer right now.
Yeah, and you can't really. I mean, look, I understand the money was what it was there, but I don't know. I don't know. Do you? Some people think that letting Sorsby go was a big mistake. You know, I understand why you may not want to pay that much for him, but you know, it seems like a loss for them, right? For Satterfield, like to me, that's like an overall, that's an L. You lost your quarterback, right? Like, and now you've got who to replace him exactly. Like they're another team. Like I said, they're probably not going to be very good again this year. They've been average, and that's what he did at Louisville too. He was always an 8-8 guy. And so overall, athletically, their athletic department, like you said, it's kind of middling. They're in that Neil Brown territory. I feel like West Virginia at least has an excuse. You hired one bad coach that got 6 years, and then you've replaced him with Rich Rodriguez, and hopefully from year 2 on, things go well. Name a team, and I mean over the last 20 years, that's had a rougher stretch in basketball than West Virginia. You've got on your 4th coach in 4 years. How often does that actually happen? How often does a team hire 4 coaches in 4 years at the Power 4 level? I can't think of it.
Never, yeah, it doesn't happen.
So Ren Baker has inherited just an atrocious situation. And yet still West Virginia should have been in the tournament. You remember me and JT went back and forth on the squad. Because his dad was on the committee and they let North Carolina in because Bubba, come on, man. Yep. Like they had, I don't want to get on it all over again, but 0 quad 1 wins. And your best team in the ACC was an 8 seed. And West Virginia had Gonzaga, they had Arizona, they had Kansas. It's insane. But, I went off into a tangent about West Virginia again, but Ren Baker inherited a horrible situation. Yep. And like you said, I feel like he's represented us so well in spite of all that. And that's not even counting all the other things that have happened with Huggins, like, that whole mess and everything that started it all. That was basically his first full year. So like he got hired in 2023. And by, let's see, he got hired in 2022, late 2022, 2023, that slapped him. So, he wasn't there very long before things hit the fan. But yeah, Cincinnati, as far as they go, what are the expectations for that program? I've always felt like in football that they've been a team that has potential to grow because of the area they're in, and all that. But it seems like they don't have a lot of support. And basketball wise, it's like that. It was literally, what Bob Huggins did and what Mick Cronin did. Yeah, it was the baton was ready to be passed off to somebody else to keep that moving. And for whatever reason, they handed it off to Wes Miller, which I understood the hire at the time. But like you said, he's just ruined that situation, and a good situation at that. And now they have, I was just talking to Chatterbox Sports the other day, which is a larger Cincinnati, program, that they don't know what's going on as far as the support. Like people are out on Wes Miller. They're struggling. They can get one really good player every year. Right. And it seems like there's a bunch of role players surrounding that guy. And that's kind of where their program is right now. They need exactly what Oklahoma State just did. They need an Eric Morris situation to reinvigorate people. And like you said, fire Wes Miller and get it over with, pull off the Band-Aid. Could Cincinnati make a run down the stretch and get in? They'd have to win almost all their games, but yeah. But outside of that, it's got to be over soon.
Yeah. And Paul, they could hire the guy from St. Louis. I think they'd be in good shape. Yeah, they're mid-major coaches who deserve an opportunity. Miami of Ohio. They're mid-major coaches in the area who deserve opportunities. That is Mountaineer Paul, Locked On West Virginia. Drake Toll with you from Locked On Big 12. Good. I told you off the air, Paul, 30 minutes, the fastest 30 minutes. You and I get together. It happens. It happens quick. And it was awesome. All the perspective from West Virginia to Wes Miller in Cincinnati. This has been and always will be. Thank you for making our shows your first listen every single day. Locked On, a crossover with West Virginia and Dose Grande.